I have somebody today with us that I am so excited. Adelina Rotar is going to be with us today, and this is going to be a little different. As you guys know, we do these weekly webinars, and they're really tactical, right? And they're really like, you walk out with 2 or 3 skill sets that you can use immediately. Today, that's still going to happen, but it's going to be more of a soft skill set because we're going to make this a true interview. Really, we're indulging me a little bit because Adelina is one of the most talented, smart, successful, honorable people I know. She's one of my best friends, full disclosure, but I've known Adelina for over a decade now. And I've watched this, much of this journey that we're going to talk about today, right? I think Adelina, we've known each other coming on a third of your life, right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, getting there. So a lot of this, I've been with her during, and so I just want to treat you guys to not just an amazing life story, but I want you to get ready to take notes today on leadership and growth and humility, on grit, with when life throws things your way that aren't always easy. And that's the lens I want you to look at today with. So, we may not be telling you how to get 1,000 leads in 30 days, but I think what you're going to get out of today is more and more important than any of those webinars combined. So with that said, so normally I would have you introduce yourself, but actually, Adelina, I think what we're going to do is we're going to do that throughout the interview. Is that, because that the whole interview is you introducing yourself. So I would love you, if it's okay with you, to start with where you grew up, where you were born, really, and how you came to America. It's a fascinating story, and where you grew up.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and it's such a pleasure. I apologize. I have caught some kind of bug, so I do have a cough drop, so I can spare you guys hopefully from a lot of extra noise you don't want to hear.
Yeah, because we don't want to get contagious through Zoom.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born in Eastern Europe, a country called Romania, and you probably haven't gone there on vacation because it's not fully developed, which is kind of cool because it is beautiful. Not as cool because there's not a tourist industry for it. My parents immigrated here with my younger brother and I. Right after the fall of communism. So we grew up in a small town, where you received water, hot water once a week. And that was normal. So my parents immigrated here, and specifically they immigrated because they wanted a better life, which speaks to probably everyone on this call. No matter what you're doing, you want a better life for yourself or for those around you. So I ended up growing up in a small town called Knoxville, Tennessee. And so anybody from Tennessee, it's on the other side of Nashville. So Nashville's kind of like the cooler side. And then you have Knoxville next to the mountains. It's beautiful, great town to raise your babies in. And my parents did get divorced early. I was in first grade. And so I was raised by a single mom for a majority of my life. My mom did remarry, had more kids. He had more kids. So I ended up being one of 10, the oldest of 10. So that's kind of a, that's a lot to work with. And my goal in life was really, I think part of it was to make my parents proud. Obviously, we all have, some sort of that. But ultimately, I wanted to also make myself proud. And what that looked like for me actually was going to be to get an MBA. Like my life plan was get an MBA, get married at 30.
Mm-hmm.
And that's awesome.
Can we just stop there a minute? Because I think what's so cool about you, because when I met you, you were, it was what, 10, 11, 12 years ago. And what's cool about it is that all of us had these visions for our lives that we look back now.
We have a
small.
plan.
They were small, but we thought they were this is we were okay, this is it, And I think part of your story is you just blew up this huge life for yourself that you probably weren't even aware of back then,
I never really conceptualized, last night, Via, we were talking about you were asking me about like net worth and questions around that. I never really visualized my life around a net worth. I never visualized myself even at that point, even as a millionaire. That wasn't what I was trying to do. My mom cleaned houses, and my first job was I cleaned houses with my mom. My mom is super educated in her country, but it's not relevant here. And
Mhm.
so you do what you have to do. And so I think I picked up a lot of that grit from her. And I remember vacuuming a white carpet, and I was like, I'm never going to vacuum white carpet ever in my life again. But I did it because it was $20 a week, and I needed $20 a week to buy the Abercrombie jeans that all my friends were wearing, right? And so I got introduced to the real estate industry not because I wanted to be in the real estate industry. I got introduced through just a teacher at school who said, hey, I know this person and they're hiring a receptionist. And I thought, oh my gosh, like that sounds like a great job. I don't have to serve tables. And so I got into the real estate industry as a receptionist at 16 years old, and really quickly awakened to the fact that real estate agents make quite a bit of money if they're any good at it. And that's kind of how I got into the real estate field.
Well, and I think that's interesting. So you started going to college and you were the receptionist in the real estate office. And, what made you leave college?
Yeah, I remember I was sitting in the auditorium, and you remember you sit with like hundreds of people, and I was late that day, surprisingly, shockingly. And I had parked in an area that you weren't supposed to park because I was late. And I remember sitting in that class, and I was like, man, I wonder how much money this person's making that's teaching the class, and I looked it up, and it said, they make, between 60 and 70,000 at that point. And I was like, gosh, that's not a lot of money. And they're the ones teaching me. And then I'd go back to my car, and there was a ticket on it. And I was like, you know what? I am not doing this again. And now, like, in that frame of mind, that was a little naive, and that was a little young and immature. And I made that decision, but I went all into real estate. Like, it wasn't like, I'm going to try real estate. No,
Yeah.
and it wasn't, I want to do real estate as a realtor. It was, I want to do real estate as a business. It's a business opportunity. So
So when
that
you were 20 years old, you thought that.
100%. Yeah. At 18, I thought that.
18.
Yeah. And the reason is I had seen my mom work really hard. I had seen a lot of people work really hard. The people who did the best in life were the ones who were able to make their own destiny. And I thought that having a business would do that. I thought having an MBA would do that, but I thought, oh, well, other people are doing it without an MBA.
So you were a receptionist at this real estate office, right? And so what were the first few steps you took to, go all in?
You're right. I did start out as a receptionist. About 3 months into it, the office manager had quit, and I thought, well, I could do this. I was still in high school, so unrealistic thinking, honestly. And yet, what I would say I always had was I was willing to do more work than anybody else. I was willing to learn anything. I was a sponge. And so, I took the office manager position because it was $12 an hour, and $12, you guys, was so much money,
Oh my gosh.
so much money. And so I told my broker at that point, it was a boutique brokerage with about 100 agents. I said, I think I want to get my real estate license. And at that point, I had been in the office manager role about 18 months. And he said, great, awesome. You can share my office if you want. I'm not here a lot. And I thought, oh my goodness, so for me, Via, it was, I wanted to do things that seemed impossible at my age, but I was willing to work my butt off for it. It wasn't that I had a dream. It was, I have a dream and I'm going to work 80 hours a week for it. And I didn't have money for an office, so I was really happy that I could use somebody's office. I did open houses. That's how I built my business. So I don't remember having a weekend off for 2 years straight. Like, that didn't exist, because what else was I going to do? I needed business. And rain or shine, didn't matter. I sold one of my first houses to a couple that walked in while it was raining. They were an older couple, and I had gotten my sandwich. I was so excited I was going to eat my sandwich, and they walked in, and I wasn't going to eat that sandwich. I never ate that sandwich.
Murphy's Law.
Right. So open houses, and then really got connected within my network, kind of in the church and things like that. And that's how I built my business initially. It was during the time where your listing appointments sounded like, oh, you're going to have to bring $40,000 to closing in order to be able to offload this property. It wasn't an
What year was this? Years, I should say.
So 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9,
Okay.
10, that range. It was just as the market was switching. Like man, like my first half of open houses were exciting, and then the last half were like the sky is falling. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Because I had a full ride to college that I like gave up.
Yeah.
And a mentor told me, how many deals do you need? And I was thinking, I need 100. Great. There's 100 every year, no matter the market. There's homes trading up, down, laterally, and I just needed to be part of 100 of those trades.
Always. The market doesn't dictate if we're successful, it dictates how we're successful. Yeah. So I'm curious, how did you do your first year?
I sold 28 homes my first year. I didn't know whether that was good or bad. It wasn't
That's
like,
good. That's superb.
exactly. I needed money. Like that was number one, right? Because I was going to be an adult, and I just stopped going to college, which, you almost have to reprove yourself a lot harder if you choose that route. And then I wanted to be really good. And in my mind, like 28 wasn't great. 100 was great, because for some reason, how you always like, you hang on to something like, oh, that's what I'm going for. Until I hit that, I didn't feel like I was successful. I felt like I was on the journey to success. And that business did come from open houses and Sphere. Those are my lead gen levers.
You know what strikes me listening to you, Adelina, is that you had a hard childhood. You worked hard, right? Like you had, and then you walked into a real estate market that was hard. Do you think that there is just an automatic expectation that to get success, you had to work hard? Do you think that played into your success?
I think that's all I knew, honestly. Even now when things feel easy, I almost like feel like, why are they easy? Like, why did I just get paid this amount of money? Like there is part of that I've had to kind of shed along the way.
Like that it has to be hard, and it doesn't have to be
hard. I almost sometimes even now create problems just to have something to solve. There's a negative to it. But the positive is you work really hard, right? Like, I almost feel lazy sometimes when I don't feel like I work hard enough.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something to explore, and that's interesting. Yeah, when I was listening to you,
My kids never feel this way, like, because I've asked them, they never feel lazy. They're always like, yeah, I worked really hard today at school. And I'm like, well, what'd you accomplish? Well, like 10% of con. Okay,
Yeah.
So it's different, definitely different. You're right.
So you had a good run as an agent, you had a team in Knoxville, and then at a certain point you decided to go back into, leadership. I say back into because you started off as an office manager, right? You decided to do that on a larger scale, and you moved to Oklahoma City.
I did.
And how long were you there? Tell us a little bit about that and what brought you to where you are now, to Austin.
Yeah, so it was probably the year 2012, 2013 range.
Wow.
You get if you've never been burned out before, kudos to you. I did feel that burnout personally. And I feel like I needed to change something. And that was the time when we did those 100 listings in 100 days type things. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. I had never done that before, but I did it. And it was great because it set my team up in Knoxville to have a ton of listings for when I made that leadership change. I think deep down somewhere, I was looking for another challenge. And when we moved to Oklahoma City, my husband and we had two children at this point. Lucas was like 2 and Andrea was like 6, school age. We moved to Oklahoma City, and I think looking back on it now, I was looking for a challenge. I was also looking to prove myself. I think sometimes, when you don't follow a specific path, like, had I gotten that MBA, I don't know that I would have needed like that, like prove yourself, like methodology to work in my head. But since I didn't do that, I think I needed something to prove myself in. I had never recruited at that level before. I remember sitting down with Mo Anderson, and she said, it's 40 appointments a month. And I was thinking, I think I've done 4 appointments ever a month for recruiting. But I learned that, again, whatever you put your mind to, as long as you put the hours behind it and you seek out the coaching and the mentorship and the collaboration, you can get anywhere. There was one month when I did 36 appointments instead of 40, and that was like a big no-no. And I was there 2 years. We were able to do great things in Oklahoma City. It's really fun. Some of my favorite people now from Oklahoma City are part of Place. So it's a lot of that, full circle moment happening.
I visited you a few times. I love that group. I see, someone's on here now. I love that group. It's such a special group of people. I agree. There's something about that group of people that was really awesome. And I remember, being part of that. And I think that if I was going to summarize, and correct me if I'm wrong, basically made a decision. And one day, you're in Austin, Texas, having never lived there before, with 2 young kids, husband, none of you guys had ever lived there before. And, enter net worth discussion. Cause I think that, if I was going to create an arc to the story, it's how do you go from 300 to 3 million net worth in 6 years in a town you've never lived in before, with extraordinary work-life balance. And that's, if I had to summarize what you've done in that period of time, it would be that you have built one of the largest real estate teams in the nation. Since you've been there, you have created enormous net worth for yourself, passive income. You've created another life. You have a 3rd beautiful baby, right? And a beautiful home, and just probably one of the best balances I've seen. So spoiler alert, like that's the end of the story. That's why we're talking to Adelina now, right?
I think of it this way, Via. I think of like the chapter of Knoxville when I started my business. Like that was a lot of like get experience. Like that was my gain real estate experience, master real estate. Then I would say Oklahoma City for me was career capital, like learn leadership, right? The failings and the highs and the lows of leadership and that career capital. And then I was able to put it all together, in Austin, Texas, because that was the place that we wanted to put down roots. So what I had going for me, outside of like, I was willing to work, was I had the experience. I knew what I wanted. I had the leadership capital that was built behind me. So it's not like you can't really skip steps, right? Mm-hmm. You can try to shortcut it, but I didn't shortcut it, right? And I'm trying to instill that in my kids. Like, how do we not shortcut processes? How can we accelerate them, right? So like, speaking of acceleration, I didn't go to Austin and say, I'm going to start Adelina Realty because I have the experience, I'm masterful, and, I can recruit. No, I looked at it and I thought, well, I think what I want to build is going to take me probably about 20 years. And I've always been really realistic around that. Like if you want to build something, it takes time. And I don't want 20 years to be like what this takes. So I did seek out different partnerships, and that partnership that I ended up with was Ben. So Ben Kinney and I both launched Austin. It wasn't just me. And it was because I wanted to accelerate, not shortcut, accelerate the process. And I think that's a big reason why we were able to build it as fast as we have, and have people stay with us as long as they have. It wasn't just me, it was Ben and I. And together, like, obviously, like, here we are. It's been good.
Yeah, it's such a cool story. So you were Ben's first out-of-state expansion partner, for everybody who is not aware of that. And the story is interesting. I was at lunch with Ben in Bellingham, and he and I were talking, and I said, "Hey, Adelina Rotar is open and available for an opportunity." And he was like, "Can you get her here?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Can you get her to Bellingham? I'll pay. Just can you get her here?" And I was like, "Ben, I think her phone's ringing off the hook right now. Like, I think everybody's calling her right now. I don't know." So I called you, remember? I called you and I was like, "Hey, would you come meet with Ben here? And you and I can hang a little bit. It'll be fun. You know, where very least we can hang out a little bit, but go meet with Ben. It's worth your while to just have a conversation with him. And the rest is history." Funny story how it all
And I
interlinked.
love that. I love that because you should always be open to opportunity.
Mhm.
You know, I'm always open to opportunity. Now I have all the opportunity in the world and I'm so grateful for it. And I would say that there are partnerships out there, whether it's personal or professional, right? Like your partnership with your trainer is a relationship. Like everything we do is a partnership, and it's really awesome when it's the right partnership, right? Whether it's a spouse, a trainer, um, a business, right? And so that was really cool. Thank you for the introduction.
It's just a cool story how it didn't occur to me when we started this that I'm like, oh, that there's this interlink that's happened there. So let's dive in. I remember, I just remember so much of this so vividly, living through this with you, right? So you got to Austin, Texas, one of the hottest real estate markets in the US.
Yeah.
Never lived there, knew who you knew, wasn't a lot of people, right? Didn't even have your license back then, in Texas.
Mhm.
How did you start? What did this look like? Can you walk everybody through your first year? Because it was crazy.
It was a crazy year. Um, I think it was crazy going through it, but I think what made sometimes you can go through stress and it breaks you, and sometimes you go through stress and it grows you, right? And so it grew me instead of broke me that first year because I knew what I wanted to accomplish, and the rest was just process. Like when you're
Adelina, that's the story of your life. I think stress and hardship has grown you, not broken you.
you, I appreciate that, and I'm in the middle of all of that right now. So yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So October 2015 is when Ben and I partnered. It was October 10th. So this is our 8th year anniversary together,
Wow.
being business partners. So high five, Ben. We've made it quite a bit. So I started recruiting here in Austin. I decided a few things. Number one, I decided I was going to be a non-competing broker. That means that every lead, every referral that comes into the team is going to be for the team. I chose that specifically not because of any other reason than I knew I wanted to be home on the weekends. That was just like my non-negotiable. Everyone has non-negotiables. It looks different for everybody, but that was my non-negotiable because I wanted to be home with my kids. Cool. Then I decided that I wanted to have a team that felt more like a partnership versus a team. A team sometimes is, everyone helping the owner. And I was very clear, like what I wanted was long-term partnerships. So with that, like kind of bias is how I went out and recruited, had 330 recruiting appointments to get my first 10 people. We did get our first 10 people and launched, I think it was like December 9th, 2015, which then ended up being a January 1st launch.
Okay, wait. Before you keep going, because this is really important, because I remember this. So, how many are you? What period of time did you have 330 contacts with people?
Oh gosh, I mean, it was like October and November because by December I needed to go. Like I was
Are
very
you saying you had a 330 conversations in
conversation.
60 days?
Yes, 100%. There was, okay, here's why. It wasn't because, oh, I didn't even know what the number it would take, by the way. I didn't know. Like, nobody was doing that. It was Gary's backyard, right? We're with Keller Williams. I definitely didn't want to fail in Gary's backyard. That would have been so embarrassing. And then number two, Austin is a really competent market. We are the fourth most educated city in the nation. I knew that I needed a big enough sales force to even make a ripple just a small, tiny wave in Austin. And if the sales force wasn't big enough and strong enough, it would fizzle out too quickly. And so that's the reason for the 10. I knew I needed 10. Ben and I agreed that 10 was the number, and it took what it took to get there.
Okay. So and this is pivotal. I want everybody to stop what they're doing and really, really listen to this. How did you recruit 10 people to a vision that didn't exist yet? And I'm talking to all of you guys who are single agents, who might have a small team, who want to grow a big team. All of you who in the back of your head have insecurities about, doing a big recruiting push because the vision is in your head and it doesn't exist yet. How did you do that? What did you say? What did you do?
I mean, I believed it. Like, I knew we were going to be like, in my mind, I wanted to be number one in Austin within 10 years. And I wanted to be like number one within my like office within like 3, right? Like, I believed it like 100%. I think when you believe, and it wasn't that I believed it because like I need my name on something or like I need the kudos. I actually don't. I'm so happy to go to work and to come home and to like see my family. Like I don't need the kudos, but I believed that we had everything at our disposal to do exactly what we wanted to do. Like the resources were there. I was there. I was ready to lead these people. So like, if you have the resources, if you have the leadership, and if you have the people willing to do it, like what else do you need?
So you studied the value proposition that you were recruiting to. You knew it. You
We were
understood.
making up along the way. Like, honestly, like sometimes like back.
Well, that's exactly why I asked you the question, because most of the time it does not exist in this situation.
No. I mean, we were kind of doing it. Like we had some things, and some things were gonna work, and some things, weren't gonna work in Austin, and that's okay. Like, one of the sub reasons why I chose to be a non-competing broker, and I chose like this kind of partnership mentality, was that wasn't being done in Austin, right? And I thought, gosh, well, so what's gonna set you apart, right? Like, no one's going to outcare me, right? Like, so like that set me apart, and I believe it, and I believed it. I don't know. I would sit down with people and say, this is what we're going to do. Here's what it's going to take. I'd love for you to be on the ground floor with me on this. And
why do you think they believed you?
I think the person with the passion at the table wins, always, 100%. I don't sell real estate right now, but if I did, like, I would be dang good at it still today, just because if you've got passion for what you do, man, it's hard to beat somebody like that's willing to work and has the passion to work.
Well, that's my secret sauce in sales and recruiting. So you just spilled my secret.
All of it, right? I mean, so we would sit down, and the conversation was just, like, here's what we're going to do. Love for you to be on the ground floor. The benefit to you is that while we're a startup and we have that startup day one energy, like, we're not just trying this out. This isn't like my first rodeo. So like I think there was a belief that they could come alongside me, right? And I think they believed in me. They believed in what we were going to do. Like, there was a mission and a vision behind this. And I was always very clear. I wanted a diverse team, but I was never going to diversify our values. Like, our values were going to always be like that grit and that hard work, that teamwork mentality, that humility, really like acting like a leader, even if your title doesn't say you're the leader. Like, those things, like values, like cannot be changed. That's how we handle conflict. That's how we hire. That's how we do everything. Beliefs, that's totally fine for your beliefs to be very different from mine.
It's interesting. I think when I look back and just listening to you now, there is a trust level there because both you and Ben had a track record of success. And so what I feel prompted to say to all of you guys listening is that if you've had a track record in another industry or another business, I think this is the time to, share that with people so that they trust that what you've done before has succeeded. It doesn't have to be real estate if you're new to growing a team in real estate. I mean, you do 6 million in GCI. You hadn't then, right? I mean, you had success, but I mean, when Pete Carroll took over the Seahawks, he didn't have, 2-time Super Bowl winning team before. So, I mean, but they trusted that he had enough experience to do what it takes.
Yeah. And, I would say that's the tip of the iceberg, because getting somebody to believe you, it's not easy, but it can be done. And then starts the work, right? Like delivering on that year after year, month after month, day after day, and staying in partnership with people long term, where both are partners, right? Because it's not a hierarchy, right? Like my agents don't work for me, and I don't work for my agents. We're a partnership.
Yeah. So walk us through the first few years as far as maybe agent count, production, just kind of what that progression looked like.
Yeah. The first year was difficult. I'll be super honest with you guys. It was June, and we had closed 8 deals with 10 people. It was terrible. And sometimes you have to realize what you're doing needs to be improved. You have to switch things that you don't necessarily want to. Like in this market, kind of calls for that. Mm-hmm. That wasn't a market related thing. That was you hired brand new agents. Congratulations. Now the market is telling you guys need to either increase your activity, or you need to have something's got to give. And so between July and December, we closed 92. And that was a result of increasing our activity. I think we were calling like 50 people a week, and we increased it to 750 people a week. I mean, crazy things, but the exciting thing is like everything's solvable, right? Like we weren't going to end that year with like 20 deals. That would be embarrassing, right? 100 was our number, and I don't know why 100 keeps coming back, but apparently like 100 is my number all the time. And so the next year, I think we did like 200 something. The next year, like higher 200s. The next year, higher 300s. And so now, like year after year, we're like a $200 million team. We saw.
Will you tell everybody what your office space situation was when you first started?
So sweet. Well, we started in a title company conference room because there were no office spaces. So we would just pack up our stuff every day and go back home and come back and do it. And I was really honest. So like the one thing that you have to be real careful of is not overpromise. Mm-hmm. Man, because that can get you, right? Like, and I've done it before, and I like every time I'm like, ooh, I shouldn't have done that. Because there's some optimism, but I was really honest, especially at those points in my life. The conversations would sound like, hey, we're in a conference room. We haven't yet been able to get an office. How do you feel about that? And some people would be like, oh, well, you'd be okay with it. And I'm like, oh, that's a no, right? Other people would say like, oh my gosh, let me tell you a story when blah, blah, blah. I'll sit on the curb and follow up with people. And I'm like, okay, all right. Well, I don't know about curb, but we'll give you a title company room. And then there were a couple offices that Keller Williams was able to open for us. One was,
to be honest, they were closets. They were literally closets.
They took the storage stuff out and let us in. Yeah. And we had 7 people in like a 10 by 10. So it was a lot, you guys. And now we have, I don't know, like 10 offices, right? Still kind of, we're not like, we haven't made it yet. However, I think what it did promote via was like just a very tight-knit community, right? A tight-knit community. And I think it promoted that blue collar work ethic. It promoted that. And, you and I like nice things, right? And I think so do our agents. We very much look at our office space as our workspace, right? You have nice things at home, have a nice car, have nice vacations, but your workspace is just your workspace. Like there's no need for us to have super high rent expenses.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Those first 6 months when it was like May, June, July, did you doubt at all?
I don't remember doubting. I remember trying to figure it out. Um, I don't think there was, it's not that there wasn't space for doubt. There's always space for doubt. I, um, I remember feeling like this has got to work. What am I missing?
Hmm.
It,
So it wasn't if, it was a how.
no, there's enough people who have been successful. Like anything you want to do, somebody's already done it, right? Like maybe they haven't done it exactly your way, but like my doubt came from like, would this partnership work, right? Like financially, like I did have doubts around that at the beginning. And Ben and I, like, the one thing I would say about Ben is he is really receptive to communication around that. And so we looked at it like, okay, well, what does it take for this to be a financially winning situation for all parties, right? It's got to be a win-win-win across the board. Um, but in doing it, no, I was always trying to solve it. And even then, my conversations with Ben weren't, let's exit this partnership. It was, how do we get to stay married? How do we get to continue this relationship? And with my best agents, I would say it's the same conversation. How do we get to stay in business together?
Yeah.
What does that look like? What does that take?
Wow. I love that. Was there an inflection point at some point where you went from decent sized team to, a big team? Did something happen? Did you change? Did you recruit someone? Did something happen? Because to go from 0 to 6 million, and how many years did it take you to get there?
5 years.
Okay. To go from 0 to 6 million in 5 years is very fast. What do you think was a point where the hockey stick or the J curve took off?
Um, Time did that. So retention of our people
So
did
consistency then, really.
100%, 100%. And um, I remember doing a career night back in like November 2015, part of like all these appointments, right? And my pitch was always, if you want to be me, I want you to be me. I want to help you be me, right? And what I meant by that is like, have a bit as big of a world as you want. It doesn't have to be my role. It can be anything you can think of. And I think my people, a lot of them believed that and wanted to do that. And I think you give something 5 years and you work hard towards it, and your people are all working hard towards it. Their businesses grew, their lives grew. They were growing in their leadership, and they were building out teams. So I think a lot of that was time. It wasn't a specific hire. It was making enough hires so that we had good people constantly growing their business.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think your strengths are as a leader?
Oh man. I think I say what I will do and then do my very best to do it. I think I do put everyone first. I think I still do that. I think people in general don't ever have to worry that their needs aren't like heard, or their needs um, aren't first and foremost. I think if we did like a 360 review, I think a lot of people would say that I am doing it for them. Um, and as a byproduct, I win.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
Um,
think that's all true.
and I think that I'm pretty honest with what I want and what I want my business to look like. And I'm pretty unapologetic around that. And it allows other people to build the life that they're unapologetically happy about.
I think you're extraordinarily transparent. I do think that's one of your superpowers. And I think what's interesting is I remember in the early days, I don't know if you still do it, but you would literally go through the team's financials with the team. And I remember going, wow, like that's almost brave to go through profit margins and to go through, have open books like that.
I just post it to Slack now, and I'm just like, congratulations, guys. We sold this much. We, did this much. We had this much profit. Here's what we reinvested. Here's how we reinvested it. Here's what Ben and I made. Like we are really transparent. Um, and here's the thing, like Zillow will take 40% before paying any of your expenses. So I'm like, if somebody is on a 50-50 split with me, like, and I'm paying all expenses, I feel great about that. That's one of the highest profit margins for an individual. Like, it's higher than my profit margin as a business owner, much higher. So yeah, transparency. I think people don't have to worry where they stand or where you stand when you're that level of transparent. Chris talks about like level 10 honesty. I don't know that sometimes, I'll tell you, like, a weakness I have is sometimes I want to do so well for people that I won't always be like level 10 honest. Like, I'll be like a level 8. And I'll like butter it up a little bit too much. And that can work against me because then I'm not having the conversations as thoroughly as I should sometimes. But I am like transparent with the things that we do as a company.
Yeah, I think that you've instilled so much trust. Your level of success and your track record has instilled trust because it's a proof of concept. They trust that when agents come and work for you, they have success. Your word is your bond. Your word is impeccable. So they trust that what you say you're going to do, you're going to do. And I think that transparency is like the third peg that really puts a bow on that package. You mentioned weaknesses. So what else do you think, are weaknesses that you've had to overcome or just hire around as a leader?
I wish that I would have, going back even to the beginning, I wish I would have prioritized collaboration a little bit more. I remember siloing myself a little bit in the beginning, and trying to work things out like by myself. Sometimes we think we're smart enough, good enough, and not that we're not. We probably are. It's just, it will accelerate everything if you collaborate, right? Like, every time I've collaborated I feel like I found that I've like sailed through something versus like trying to claw my way out of it. Like, I've always found a way out, but it was the difference between, am I clawing my way out of it or am I like sailing through this? Another thing I wish I would have done is even to this day, I wish I would have partnered with even more talent, right? And for somebody, it might be that maybe they wish they would have taken more listings or done more video content or whatever that looked like for them. But I feel like whatever your biggest domino is, whatever is going to give you your biggest return, like, you can't ever like spend too much time on that. Like, I wish I would have spent more time to be in relationship with more people that we could be partners with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a self-esteem, I think, that goes with leadership growth that, we just don't see ourselves in an identity sometimes that is worthy of certain levels of talent. And so I think as our leadership develops and matures, we start getting bolder and more confident that we can hire and partner with, talented people. I think we all probably look back and go, why? But why? Like, why didn't I do it back then? And I think that that's a normal path that we all go
Even consistently doing, some of this stuff, like, the last market, like that wave of just like,
yeah,
it all came to you, man. That felt stressful in a way, but man, it was
yeah.
easier. Going back to the basics now, like, great, awesome, cool. Let's do more of that. I feel like, burnout is something that I've had to work through. Like, I've been in this industry now 20 years. I've never gone outside of the industry. And that can feel like you do the same thing over and over. You have the same conversations over and over. And I've dealt with burnout quite a bit. And one thing,
How have you dealt with it?
so something Chris Suarez coaches on, is there's a part of Stephen Covey's book where it talks about like the 4 quadrants, right? Like, quadrant 1 is urgent and important, and quadrant 2 is urgent, non-important, right? I work so much in quadrant one sometimes where like everything's urgent, everything's important, and you are exhausted by it, right? But I find that when I'm like, whoa, why am I living in this side of the world where I'm a firefighter, not a business owner, right? And the more I can get myself in quadrant two, where I'm working on things consistently around a vision, around a mission, around a business plan, and not a firefighter plan, that I almost work myself out of that burnout, because then I'm like, okay, well, what's next? Like like I can think creatively again. I can't think creatively and be like my best self in this quadrant one. And COVID happened and like we had to manage so much there. Then the market blew up and like we had to manage so much. Then the market shifted and we had to manage so much. I feel like I've spent too much time in quadrant one and I'm working my way out of it to be a business owner again.
That is a brilliant way to describe it. That is really, really well said. I think I'm going to take that away actually today and really think about it, because I think a lot about how much building in white space and time blocking some of these urgent but not urgent but important things are. I think that you encapsulated that so well.
Mm-hmm.
What else do you wish you would have done differently looking back?
When we talk about, you know, the real estate affords us the ability to make a lot of money. And, you know, I've been really blessed with, you know, when I came to Austin, we had about a 300,000 net worth. So those, you know, we were, you know, early 30s, and that's pretty good. And we've built it to a 3 million net worth now. And it doesn't include our business or anything like that. It's just real estate. Real estate and stock, right? Like we had a down market for stock and we bought really well, and we bought a lot of real estate. Here's what I wish I would have done. I wish I would have bought more real estate, and we say that.
Amen, sister. Amen.
but like what's the action step? Like even like as I'm saying this to myself, like what's the action step? And if I would coach myself like from 8 years ago, I would have said, you have a grocery budget, you have a car payment budget, or you have a whatever kind of budget you have. Like, why don't you have, I'm going to buy an investment property budget?
Right.
Like, if it takes $20,000 down payment, like, how much is that per month? Right. Because you tell an entrepreneur, like, this is what you need to do, like, and they know what it takes, they're likely to do it. Like, they can do it. We have the ability, we're not like stuck, right? I wish I would have made it part of my budget so that it happened as a process. Like that part, I haven't like created a process for in my life. And you can tell because like some years I buy a lot of real estate, some years I don't buy any real estate. Well, that's dumb.
Yeah.
So turn it into a process. Like that's what I would have done different.
So smart, so true, so good. Wow. Wow. What do you want to tell Adelina, all of our leaders who are watching, who either run real estate teams or other businesses right now? What do you want to tell them on the eve of what could be a rough 2 quarters in front of us?
Yeah, I think it is going to be a rough 2 quarters. Oh man. Other than what everyone else is already saying about, you know, cut your expenses, blah, 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 blah. That's all very important and necessary. For any of us to make it through the next 2 quarters, because success is survival, like we all know that, right? All we have to do is survive. And if we survive the next 2 quarters, it's going to be good. It's going to be like nothing weird lasts forever, right? So you get more results when you do things from a good state of mind, right? It all happens here. So I think about, how do I get my state of mind to be in a state of mind that's positive, that's passionate, that's excited about like the opportunity that exists called success is survival. And I haven't really thought about it. So I'm just like kind of like thinking like what it is for me. I think really clear what it's going to take, shed the things that aren't going to serve me, right? The routines, the habits, the people that aren't going to serve alongside that. And then if I say, you know, in my business, if I need XYZ, then I need to go do XYZ. But before all of that, it comes back to my mentality. And then making sure that I have an outlet for, because it's going to be tough, making sure I have an outlet for like a safe space outside of like the grind of the business, right? Whether that's your family, whether that's whatever that is. For me, it is my family. Like I have a safe space with my family, great relationships. But I think I need both. I think for me to, because it's a mental game.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a skills game. Yeah, it's an expense management game, but it's a mental game.
How do you get your mind right in those situations? Because you exemplify so much grit. You're one of the grittiest people I know. Said as a compliment. That sounded weird. The grittiest person I know, but not like, you know. But how do you get your mind right and ready to, you know, fight the fight, fight the good fight?
I would say, I mean, I don't think that like failure is really an option, right? Like it's just like not. I have too many people counting on me, like and looking up to me, and I count on me, like I want to be happy, like I want to be successful. So like when I wake up in the morning and I don't feel like doing it, and it's like 10 minutes before you have to leave, and you're still like not dressed or showered.
Yeah,
I don't
totally.
know if you guys ever do that, but there are days where it's like,
You know, I do because we're texting.
yeah, it's like, man, I got to be on a Zoom in 10 minutes and I still haven't showered, right? Like if you haven't felt that before, wow, I have felt that before, and I feel it quite often. I do go back to what I'm doing this for. Like, and I know it sounds cheesy, but in reality, like if you aren't really clear why you're doing it, it's hard to get up and do those things on the days that it doesn't feel good to do them. Uh, I'm very clear that I have goals that I want to hit, right? Financial goals. I have teenagers. I have a baby. I have a husband. Um, if you haven't really dove deep into like what it is that you want to accomplish, it's hard to be an entrepreneur, because that's what we really are. We're not realtors, we're entrepreneurs, and it's hard to be an entrepreneur. But what gets us through it is knowing what's on the other side.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Well, I really, really appreciate you spending this time. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. And you know, I know you're not feeling well on top of it. So I really double appreciate it. Where can everybody find you if they want to reach out for either a referral to Austin, Texas, or for future
Yeah,
combos?
absolutely. You can always visit me in Austin, Texas. Be happy to take you to lunch. I'm on Instagram as Adelina Rotar, and also on Facebook, those of you who are old enough for it, also as Adelina Rotar. And my email is just adelina@benkinney.com.
.com.
Oh,
Cool.
.com. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's always the .com. Yeah. And, you know, Via, I think about all this, and like, is as sucky as this is all going to be, because like, why sugarcoat it? It's going to be kind of sucky. But like, find your happy. There's got to be something happy. Find something happy about all this. Like, find stuff to like be happy about. And
Right.
like, we can do it. We've done hard things. This isn't the first hard thing.
That's right. And you know, what I would say is that experience is really great in markets like this. So, you know, anyone with any experience typically does well, and it's a great recruiting environment. So there are silver linings in every market, right? So
Absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate the time.
yeah, thank you. And thank you guys all for joining us once again. And we will see you next Wednesday. And I think that one's just going to be me too. So you're stuck with me for 2 Wednesdays in a row, everybody. All right. Thanks, Adelina.
Appreciate you.
All right. Bye-bye.